All right. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe to the link you see below, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com, and the link, of course, to the public polling project is below. If you like honest and accurate polling that is supported by the public and not corporate interests, that's the place to go. Speaking of, I really hope this was for the public polling project, but it's not. And yet I still got permission to at least talk with you about it and perhaps even show you a little. So, at the high of his honeymoon period, Donald Trump was almost plus 20 on approve. And when you looked at party approval, of course, independents were overwhelmingly with Republicans, and Republicans overwhelmingly still approve of the job that President Trump is doing. However, you can see what is very clearly an evening out among independents and a significant decline among approval, a significant decline in his approval among Democrats. So the question is, because I'm going to argue the latter here, the question is, A, or former, is this just the way politics is in this country now, and that's something we have to accept? Or the latter, B, it is only a matter of time, and if Donald Trump delivers on economic promises, then even a good chunk of Democrats are going to approve of Donald Trump and like Donald Trump. Why? Because we can actually see for the first time, I think, ever, his favorability a little bit higher, or a little bit, not even higher. It's actually a little lower, but his margin favorability being a little bit more than his approval. So we have him at about approve plus 3, which is if we lean everybody and we don't accept no for an answer. The one thing he should be concerned about is that his approval barely does not move. When you lean undecideds, it goes from just under 52 to just over 52, with roughly 49% disapprove. And then when you don't lean them, it's 49-46. All right. I mean, excuse me, 51. My God, 51 to 48. So like it was, and I mean, when I say 51 to 40 to 52, I'm talking about really just rounding. Okay. It's not even a full point. So he's basically not budging at all when you're like, push, go. Now, his favorability, which is lower, okay? However, the margin is bigger. Tells you that, or tells me, and I'm going to tell you what it means, that there are still more people who are not still. This is new. There are more people saying that they disapprove of him than there are saying they don't like him. Now, this could be a huge bombshell finding, and I wish it was a public record for the public polling project. It's not, and we should probably, we could try to get out there as quick as possible to put it on record. But and I'm curious, is this something that's noise, or is this the start of a pretty damn significant trend? Why? Because Donald Trump's always had this secret weapon where he's been able to get people who don't like him to vote for him. Anywhere between 10, 15%. It's not overall. I'm talking about 10 or 15% of people who don't like him. They will vote for him anyway. And that has been difficult for Democrats to contend with. They're 1 for 3. All right. They've lost 2. They've won 1 against him. And let's be honest, we'll look at what they had to do to win it. All right. The bottom line is, if you run somebody's net favorables or unfavorables to the moon, and you still can't beat him, because even though some people think, I don't like the son of a, but man, he's a good president. That's a hard person to beat. Rick Scott used to be able to do that in Florida when he was the governor of Florida. His approval rating was disgusting. His favorability was usually 40, 42, maybe on a good day, 44%. But he could win. He could put together a majority because they thought he was a good governor. You know what? He does the job well. He's a getter. He's a go-getter. He's a get-it-doner. Right? Whatever other phrase we want to throw on it. So if this continues, this is the start of a massive, massive change. There's also a reason. There's a few reasons why I think that this could be not noise. Not could be. I think it's not noise. There's only one way to find out. but I don't think it's noise. And that's because of who is saying they like him and who is saying they dislike him. There was a chart the other day that people put up, and Republicans hemmed them, and not hemmed on. They were, oh, look how awesome that is. And it is. However, you got to take it with a grain because you still are dealing with the world that is here right now. The world that is to come is going to be a little bit. Also, it may not come because the Republican Party is not Donald Trump. And these very people are a great example. Steve Cortez and others, I think he did a whole video about it. They were super thrilled, and they're like, oh my God, Trump won 18-year-olds, which he did, and I told you he was going to. The 18 to 24, in fact, is a group of younger people. They're not yet overeducated. They're not yet credentialed with worthless degrees. They haven't gone through the indoctrination process. And they think Trump's cool as hell. Maybe they remember their parents were doing better under Donald Trump, whatever it may be. Joe Biden is an idiot. He was a total embarrassment, a humiliation to have a senile president running around and then, thinking kids are so stupid. You tell them he's not senile as if like they can't see with their own damn eyes. The memes aren't going around watching him fall walking upstairs on Air Force One, not once, not twice, not three, but 4 times in his presidency. Falling off his bike, which they thought was hilarious. Okay. Joe Biden, who rubs them as an entitled white woman snob, right? I mean, just on and on and on. There's this young chunk of vote that Democrats miss with the culture war because they don't care about arts and entertainment. They don't care about the Grammys. They don't care about the Oscars. They don't care about the Academy Awards or even the damn Grand Ole Opry. They don't care. They're watching TikTok. They're doing memes on their video games with their friends. They're on, Snapchat and all that other stuff and Instagram. And that is what gets around. And the right has been drumming the left with the meme war. We have better material over there. Let's be honest. It's just better material. Bill Maher is not funny anymore, right? Jon Stewart is not funny. Saturday Night Live is not funny. Brendan Dilley is funny. It may be gross, it may be crude, it may be lewd, it may be lascivious, but it's funny as hell. So you can see it here. And what if we go back and look, the claim that young men specifically have never been more Republican is half true. Young Republican men have never been more Trumpy or never been more likely to vote for a Republican candidate. That's including Ronald Reagan, by the way. And that is true. But the Republican Party is not Donald Trump. And you're going to find that out tomorrow. We're going to find it out when we watch the results of Wisconsin rolling in. And I saw people passing along the Trafalgar poll. Robert tries to do the best job he can. But as locals pointed out, it is a low turnout election. And some people have had a difficult time being able to grasp that. I can tell you from polling data that I know and I trust because I know that there are too many Harris voters. There are more Harris voters voting for the liberal candidate for the Supreme Court than there are Trump voters voting for the conservatives. It's simple math. And it's not good. These attacks on Musk, which I'm going to play a clip here in a second, these attacks on Musk, they don't resonate with this group of people. They're the ones holding Trump's approval up. If you look at the 65 to 74 category, Trump is negative. He is in our polling, -5. 75 and above or super seniors, very different. But that guy was bobbing between -2 to -13. I mean, on a daily basis for the last couple of days among that age group. Some of it is they're just getting liberals, that liberal group, that liberal flower children destroyed the prosperity of the country generation. The children of the greatest generation, who are probably one of the most entitled little snots, generational snots you've ever seen. who smoked dope and took LSD and drank too much patchouli oil, thinking that like it was a drink and not an oil for fragrance on your body, which smells like crap anyway, and rotted their brain doing it. And now they've been on Valium for like 15 years. They're never going to get off. You know what I'm talking about? Like I'm not trying, as I say this again, because as I've noticed, I'm getting recognized a lot more. So I have to kind of qualify things I say now, and I got to watch my mouth. So as it turns out, Laura's right, because when you walk into church and your pastor's like, "What's up, People's Pundit?" you better watch your mouth. When you go to your daughter's dance competition and you walk through the lobby and they're like, "It's the People's Pundit," you better watch your mouth. When your daughter's friend who referred you to that church, when her mother knows, you gotta watch your mouth. So I have hereby submitted and will try, at the very least, I will try to watch my mouth. But I'm still going to insult people if it warrants insulting. I speak in generalities. It's who I am. It's what I am. It's what I do. It's who I am. It's what I do. We all know the people I'm talking about. If you're my age, they're your parents. They effed everything up. They got divorced at these ridiculously high rates. They foreclosed on mortgages. They bought too many cars in the 80s and ruined their credit. You know what I'm talking about. They let your 15-year-old friends in the 90s smoke pot in the basement, and you thought it was cool. That's who they are now. And it's funny because during that time period, some of the beginning of that generation, not the 70s, but in the early 60s, it looked like some of them may end up being some of the most conservative voters out there. But that ended about 5 years into that trend. And now the world's upside down. Yet there still is a chunk of Republicans, even though Trump's historically high. Among Republicans, he's historically high. Higher than Ronald Reagan. That's just true. He's historically higher. There's still a chunk that can't stand him and calls themselves Republicans. And yet, excuse me, there is a chunk of Democrats now, because this is new. During the entire Trump era, that was not new. Trump cannibalized his independent vote. He made the Republican Party larger, and yet a chunk of the Republican Party voted for Democrats, or self-identified Republicans voted for Democrats. Anywhere between like 8 and 12%, maybe 14 on a really bad election. Ask Martha McSally. Certainly more, even though it turned out only to be like 7 and 9%, depending on the estimate that you trust more. In 2020, it was only 7 to 9% of Republicans who voted for Joe Biden. That's it. But there was only 2% of Democrats who voted for Donald Trump. Well, those days are over. And now we have these dueling chunks, which ironically are... It's just a realignment that hasn't gone through, I think. That's what I think. That's what I'm proposing. And I'm also proposing that you're not telling me that a month ago, 10% more of the Democratic sample approved of Trump, but can never approve of him. We're just going to sit here in this partisan funk forever. I don't buy it. The truth is, the Democratic Party that's in Washington, D.C., and in the media, that's represented by the media, and in bureaucracy, right? Those slobs that sit there, they use COVID to sit on Zoom all day, and now they're crying like little babies because they got 6 months of severance and they have to find a job while still also getting paid by Donald Trump and the federal government, which comes from your pocket. By the way, get ready to write a check. Those people don't reflect everybody in the Democratic Party that calls themselves a Democratic voter. And I'm not saying this is a huge chunk that could be peeled. It's not huge, but it's not insignificant either. Last month, when they were telling me tariffs were great, and yes, I support the use of tariffs as a trade and foreign policy negotiating tactic. I do. And they disagree. They disagree with the gentrified Republican, the silk stocking Republican. I mean, at first you're like tempted to think that's noise until the UAW president comes out and says, finally, an administration that's doing something for us. Of course, the UAW notoriously resisted Donald Trump's working class appeal, even though the members love him. So before we even get in more to the tariff thing, because I don't know if this turns out to be a real revenue stream, the way that much of a revenue stream, tariff everything. We're broke, man. We're going down. But this stuff matters more to these younger people who would have otherwise called themselves Democrats, or at least socially liberal, for sure. Socially liberal. I mean, you have to understand, these guys are growing up with furries in the locker next door to them in the hallway. Okay? They're not exactly being raised in like Andy Stanley Sr.'s household. No dig. I'm just simply saying these are not particularly faithful young people. They're not people of faith. They're not like uber conservative. They just think that Donald Trump is cool. Republicans, on the other hand, no. You'll have to explain to them, guys, if you're parents and you have some young new entrants into the political process, you're probably going to have to explain to them that Donald Trump is in fact a Republican. And even though it's crazy, yes, he belongs to the same party as that old crusty dude, Mitt Romney, and that loser who lost during a Great Recession. All right, so here's a clip I picked because, number one, it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I never understood how people who call themselves progressive, which I like to think I am, I never understood how people who call themselves progressive cannot prioritize this entire industry. It's huge. And it's also something that I think is a perfect example of the disconnect. You know, maybe Bill Hemmer on Fox News doesn't see it, but it's there. Although maybe he might have, unless his producer gave him this. But let's go ahead and roll this.
What would you like to say to President Trump and Elon Musk?
I respect you. I trust you. You've given me no reason not to trust you, either one of them. What they say, I can't say what they say. I haven't lived that. But I have no reason not to believe anything they say because they've earned my trust. And for that, I am grateful that our national leaders actually are coming in and taking part in our human spaceflight program, which we see is hugely important global significance, and they take an active role.
Let me just stop there and say this. I said this after Trump was defeated in 2020, by all means necessary, and I do mean all means, that we would remember Donald Trump many, many years from now, not as the guy that the media painted him as, because they're not going to last. If they win, this is all coming down anyway, and nobody will ever remember them other than with shame and contempt, because they truly were the enemy of the American public. But 100 years from now, 200 years from now, we're going to remember Donald Trump for bigger things, for Space Force, the very idea, even if the United States isn't around, God forbid, but even if it isn't, and for putting the first telescope in space that doesn't rely on the wobble effect to detect blue planets, and realizing that blue planets are much, much more abundant in our universe than we ever thought, and in our galaxy than we ever thought. These are huge things. And he just said, what he's saying is almost the equivalent of what we heard the UAW president say last week, only with a different issue. Finally, there's an administration that cares about this, and it has huge significance. Just like the UAW is dealing with members in that area specifically, that what happens to them and the policies that the administration in this country obviously will have a huge impact on their livelihoods and who they are. He's saying this industry is going to have an impact on humanity. I don't know about you guys, but suns don't last forever. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I can't understand how small-minded our politics have become. We're supposed to worry about the climate ending life as we know it in 12 years, but we can't come to the reality that if we don't get a lunar landing pad, we're never getting a hop jump to Mars. It's not going to happen. And why that's important? That's very small and narrow-minded. And finally, there's an administration that cares. The last one, or not even the last, well, he was the vice president of the one I'm referring to. When Joe Biden was vice president under Barack Obama, they raped and pillaged NASA to have but fund Obamacare. They stole from NASA to fund the shortfall that they created in other medical programs when they created Obamacare. That telescope and several missions got scrapped and put on hold. Of course, it wasn't available back then, but the working on it absolutely was. It wasn't until Donald Trump came along, and he's doing it for reasons you'd understand if you were in the locals book club. Not only because he believes in it, but because it is a great source of nationalism. And it is a great creator and sustainer of nationalist fervor, which is not a bad thing, as we are learning in our books, aren't we? It's said to be a bad thing because liberals hate it. Why do they hate it? Because they want to live their one world kumbaya. We all sit around the campfire at the United Nations, hold hands, and all is well in the world when it's not. They want to live in a fantasy world. And the liberal nation state and the international system of anarchy is just not good for their little worldview because it slaps them in the face with reality every single time. It's not real. It doesn't exist. It exists in their minds and in their hearts where God should be. But it doesn't exist in the real world. And finally, a guy comes along trying to revamp all of that. He respects the liberal nation state system, wants healthy nationalism in the country, wants to preserve it, because that is how you preserve your country, as we're finding out. Without it, it dies. Okay? It's just such a stupid level of discourse in this country, in the media, in the pages of op-ed sections, you know, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal. They're just dumb people. They're small-minded people. They're stupid. Discourse is in the mud. It's terrible. People deserve better. You know what would make that better while I'm on a sidetrack here? Drop this pretentious nonsense that they're impartial and they're like the watchdogs of the hallways of power. It's a load of crap. Most of our country's history, we understood that media had a point of view and that you were supposed to be reading it with a grain of salt and make your own decisions, not listen to them, pretend like they're an authority of truth or a defender of truth, a watchdog of truth. That's a load of crap. They're not fact checkers. They're partisans. The last two sections that we read were written by two men who had agendas, Jose Marti and, of course, Herzl. The Jewish state. That's what we read. The Jewish state and our America. Guess what they did? Guess what their profession was? Journalist. That's what they started as. One will end up dead because he'll go in a different direction. Well, we all end up dead, don't we? But they use their artistic ability. They use their craft to be able to make a persuasive argument. But when people were reading them, they understood that they were trying to be persuaded. They were trying to persuade their readers. They weren't reading them with this like fake impression that they're credible and impartial. They had a point of view, just like every other human being on Earth. Is CNN and their anchors filled with cyborgs? No. So, in any event, that's what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to bring attention to this. And this guy, this guy is grateful for it. The younger generation that will just not budge on this guy's approval rating, they think that's cool. Man, it's a good thing Trump's close with Musk. Save those astronauts. That's cool. That's a cool achievement. By the way, what has Adam Schiff done lately? You write to your sexual predator buddy in jail yet, dude? I mean, I'm sorry you weren't around Friday. We had a great session. We found 5 young black and brown kids off the street to stick with drugs and rape when they were asleep. No one's going to find that cool. All right, so man, 2:30 already? I guess that's why I do this job. I don't know how to shut up. But let's play the rest of the clip, and then we'll take a break.
And based on the past and what we see now, with them doing that, it's refreshing. Not just refreshing. It's empowering. It's strengthening for our nation. I think it's a good thing for our nation when the national leaders, especially something that's high visibility, are involved in the process. And I'm grateful for that.
Whoa! Thinking man. Everybody, get under the desks. Assume the position. Follow the teacher to the shelter. It's a thinking man. He just basically said everything I just said. And that's because what he just said is absolutely true. It's why Nixon was a very scientific president. He was trying to unite people, give us a common purpose. Something that a common goal, a common challenge to overcome. This was a time of celebration. Yet the media and the administration's opponents, they hate him and they hate America and they hate the people who vote for him so much they can't even pause a second. Not 1 second, just to say what an incredible accomplishment for humanity. Thank God that the administration had this resource to go to. You see, Elon Musk for Democrats is perfectly fine and cool. Oh my goodness, again? I just spoke to them. Elon Musk is perfectly cool to Democrats when he's donating to them, when he's giving them Starlink so he can help their oligarch dictator friend over in Ukraine repel Russia a little while longer, even though it was a futile effort to begin with. But they can't stand him now simply because he didn't shut up and get on board with what they were trying to do. He's a businessman and he understands the United States cannot go on like this. And before we take away money that was promised to the American public for their hard work, donating basically or investing in essentially what is a Ponzi scheme, before we do that, maybe we should go through what is the biggest perpetrator of financial fraud in the history of the world, the U.S. federal government. Maybe we should go through that first and see what we can get rid of before we take away and break our promise to the public. Now, I'm not saying that these programs don't need to be dealt with. At some point, they're going to have to be. But how dare you come after somebody's Social Security check before you get rid of the $10,000 hammers? As we showed you last week, USAID is pumping money into Latin American countries to put their judges through censorship training. Everywhere. That's not vital to the national security interests of the United States. It's vital to the deep state. It's vital to the blob. Get rid of that first, and then we'll come and talk about it. All right, let's finish the rest of it.
And, I'm just glad that they're involved and they take notice. And, our situation, I think I've mentioned before, maybe wasn't the perfect situation, but allowed a lot of people, including the president and Elon, to look at what's going on the International Space Station, take it very seriously, and understand that our involvement as a country, as a spacefaring nation, is really important throughout the world. And it sets an example, and it shows, our ability to be able to do the hard things, put people in space, operate in space, work in space, and then bring us back. It's important, and I appreciate that them and many more people took notice of it.
She's on a first name basis with the guy. Did anybody catch that? Did anybody else catch that? The president and Elon. The opportunity, and first of all, I'd like to think we're a God space-faring country because who created space? All right. Now, maybe you're an atheist out there and you don't agree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I respect your view. You're wrong, but I respect your view. But I get where she's coming from. This is not something to be taken lightly. It's an incredibly difficult task to explore space, to send human beings out into it, to create, maintain, and utilize a space station that is in orbit around our planet. Just an incredible feat. And then to bring them back. That's pretty damn important. If everything's a one-way trip, we're not going to get anywhere, folks. But it is right to have a healthy fear of space. It is right. And to take it as unseriously as most, including Republicans, most recent administrations has done, is petty. It's small. We should at least be able to take this time to like, so, wow, what a great job. What a great job. Biden, on the other hand, couldn't even evacuate a couple Marines out of Afghanistan. He got them killed. Oh, yeah. He got them killed, which is probably why the families of those Marines were on the campaign trail with Donald Trump in the halls in the joint session, if I'm not mistaken. One of them. All right, let's take a break. This is going to be interesting. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. Could your health issue, and listen, before I get into this, because I know it's going to sound crazy, but it's more common than you think. It's much more common than you think. In fact, I'm sitting there watching the monster inside me. And if you do not have a strong stomach, do not watch this show. If you're one of those people who get skeeved out by this stuff, do not watch this show. Laura's one of them. But I think it's fascinating. Although some of it does skeeve me out still. But I think it's fascinating. And I'm watching the show, and I don't know the mother and the daughter. But I do know exactly where it is in Gainesville, Florida. And I knew the doctor, one of them, that is actually cited in the episode, which was crazy. And I believe it was National Geographic, right, honey? The monster inside me, that's Nat Geo, right? Or it is, yeah, it's Nat Geo. It's not Discovery. I'm like 90% sure it's Nat Geo. So it is more common than you think. And what happened with this woman is that, well, I shouldn't say that's going to sound horrible, but it is true. She did adopt, and sometimes these other nations absolutely are not as rigorous as we are when it comes to, checking certain health things, including infestation. Okay. And this poor girl just went kind of mute. She was sitting in church, just wet herself and just would not talk. And it turned out that this is what happened. And it could happen to you. Could your health issue be caused by the invisible enemy? I kid you not. A lot of things. Fatigue, bloating, brain fog. What if parasites are the real culprit? I was digging into parasite cleanses when I came across this video that I'm going to show you right now. All right.
The main differences between ivermectin and fenbendazole. These are two anti-pathogens used to treat parasitic infections and other similar types of conditions. They are used quite often in the oncology world to treat cancer. They both have as anti-pathogenic abilities.
All right. Look, that's interesting stuff, isn't it? Did you know that 60 million Americans apparently have parasites? That's terrifying. And they're everywhere. In our food, water, our pets, they secretly invade your body, wreaking havoc on your gut, energy levels, even your brain. And the mainstream medical system doesn't want you to think about this because one great cleanse can change your life. The Wellness Company has a solution for you. Ivermectin plus mebendazole. I got it. All right. FDA approved parasite solutions now combined in one cleanse combo. Look, you just like anything over there, you fill out the brief medical intake over at the Wellness Company and you get a free, a 3-month supply. Whoa, you wish it was. Lots of parasite cleansers are all over social media, but they're not the gold standard level. Maha is officially here with the Wellness Company, and it's making these hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your life. Go to twc.health TPP. As always, use the code TPP to save $60 off. Plus, you're still going to get free shipping. $60 off. Don't wait. Cleanse your body. Take back control today. We love our friends over at the Wellness Company. They're thinking of everything. You think that is not a possibility? The stats are legit. Man, it's kind of crazy to think about it. You know how many Americans are in this country at last census count? Roughly 350 million. All right? Well, Americans, right? Yeah. That's technically not true. Right. But you know what I mean. And if 60 million Americans, upwards of 60 million, have parasites and don't know it. Now, some are obviously just kind of harmless. Some not so harmless. I knew a guy who got one in his eye and he lost his vision. It was in his eye. Okay? You got to have these medications. I know you guys think about this stuff when we're talking about all the antibiotics and anti-malaria stuff. I am proudly a prepper. Anti-parasitic, not just medications, but preparations are essential. All right. Links in the description. twc.health/TPP. All right. Like I said, last week we saw and heard, I still have the video, but I'm not going to play it again. The UAW president, I think it's fair to say, praising the administration for these very tariff policies that the media and the Wall Street Journal are wigging out about. It's a tax on the consumer. Mark, right? That's how it's done, Mark. We heard this out of your mouth in the first administration too, and it didn't happen. Everyone knew the tariffs were coming. Everyone knew the tariffs were coming. And yet, inflation went down in the month of February. We went over this ridiculous talking points over Honda. The vast majority of Hondas are now made in the USA. Okay? So it's like ridiculous that these people come up with this stuff. Look, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is if the White House Economic Council is correct, and the White House chief economic advisor, as you know, was a friend of mine. If he's correct, then this could be a massive revenue source for the United States that we desperately, desperately need. All right. So the White House is basically saying, I didn't get to the border. I got to do that, man. That's today, right? Yeah. I got to show you guys a report on the border. It's like things get fixed. And then we sometimes, I'm sorry to take a detour here again, but things get fixed. And sometimes we don't take a second to bring it up and we just take it for granted, or how bad something was before, and we take it for granted and we don't go back. I mean, the LA Times right now, which I found doing research for this tariff situation, tariff revenue source. But I mean, it's of course on the White House website. Reporter's going to go do it. And as you should not be a mouthpiece for the White House, but they are during Democratic administration. So it's worth pointing out how unfair it is and inconsistent and hypocritical it is that they don't report on the actual news. Immigration was a huge issue, if not the first, the second issue that decided the outcome of the 2024 election. You would think this matters. So if I have time, I'll get to it. And I don't want to be guilty of it myself, but it's in the LA Times today, guys. That basically, quote, and then I'll get to it. Migrant crossings have slowed to near a halt along the California-Mexico border. It's a big deal. But before we get into that, and we play this other clip, which is going to detail, it's almost $1 trillion in revenue. That's not like a few peanuts here. Let me read to you what the UAW president actually said the other day. And then I mean, I have it right here. I still do have it. Should we play it? They're even I gotta show this. How could I not doing a story on tariffs? In a victory for auto workers, auto tariffs marked the beginning of the end of NAFTA and the free trade disaster. That's from the UAW. Sean Fain, we applaud the Trump administration. What? Folks, the UAW does not applaud Republican administrations. Not for nothing. Never. Never, ever. This is crazy. We applaud the Trump administration for stepping up to end the free trade disaster that has devastated working class communities for decades. This is interesting because we did get a new trade agreement, but it wasn't good enough for them. Now, Trump being unchained and doing what he wants to do with Canada, with Mexico, with everyone, with China, this is more of their speed. Even though the media can't stand it, the Wall Street Journal can't stand it, Murdoch's hiding in his closet, this is their speed. This is what they were looking for. Ending the race to the bottom in the auto industry starts with fixing our broken trade deals. And the Trump administration has made history, and this was last Friday, with today's action. This is Sean Fain, the UAW president, again. But ending the race to the bottom also means securing union rights for auto workers everywhere with a strong National Labor Relations Board. A decent retirement with Social Security benefits protected, which is what I was just alluding to before, which Trump, unlike the Republican Party, and Jack Posobiec and I talk about this all the time. You want to be like Trump? You want his voters? Start with actually adopting his platform. One of them, which is huge in the Rust Belt and the Mid-Atlantic states, you cannot touch Social Security, not until you deal with all the other crap. And we know what we're talking about. The fraud, the defense fraud, the USAID fraud, the money laundering scams like the Biden family getting rich off of Ukrainian shale deposits that they funneled your money to so that they can invest, their country can invest in them and then kick back to the Bidens money for directing that money to them in the first place in the form of cushy jobs to their stupid son who doesn't know anything about energy or speak the language or anything about the only thing Hunter Biden knows about Eastern Europe, Ukraine, and Russia is whatever he got from the prostitute service that is on speed dial on his cell phone. But Trump does support labor union rights. He does think Social Security should be protected until all other things at the least are dealt with. Like, why make the working man and woman suffer while these disgusting slob crooks are swimming in their vaults like Scrooge McDuck with your money? It's a scam. No. You can't have $60 out of my Social Security check so you can keep making and raking your millions, man. No. You get serious about all that other crap first. Come back and speak to me in 10 years when it doesn't go back. Because I'll tell you what they'll do. They'll say, okay, we dealt with that. Now we're going to deal with Social Security. They'll permanently change your Social Security, and they'll go right back to being crooked pieces of you know what. I'm doing good today, Laura, aren't I? Come on. Think I deserve a cookie. I think I deserve a cookie. Anyway, working people expect their leaders to work together and deliver results. The working class in general couldn't care less about party politics. That Trump is basically willing to reverse decades of working class people going backwards in the most profitable times in our nation's history. Jeez, Sean Fain sounds like Steve Bannon right now. Does he not? This is me and Steve having a discussion about why MAGA exists. This sounds like me and Steve. Like if you guys were to eavesdrop on a conversation between the People's Pundit and Steve Bannon, this is what you would hear us say. How is it not possible or so evident to everybody else how this man is winning, how this man is like the Teflon Don, how nothing they do is going to stop him? Like, how is it not? They don't care about anything that's fabricated or held august over their own personal suffering. While everyone else in their ruling class was getting richer beyond anything this country has ever seen for a guild, a ruling class. The working class has been getting pounded worse than since we created what is known as a middle class in this country. These tariffs are a major step in the right direction. This is a quote for auto workers and blue collar communities across the country, and is now on the automakers from the big three to Volkswagen and beyond to bring good union jobs to the United States. Even when those of us saw Trump winning a state like Michigan in 2016, we did not see the UAW becoming a political ally of Donald Trump. They were too institutionally democratic. Not anymore. I think Joe Biden and the people who used and abused him, starting with his own wife, who should be ashamed of herself, and everyone else around him who is guilty of engaging in elder abuse and the abuse and misuse of a senile old man, they're all to blame for this. The emperor has no clothes moment gave them permission to jump ship, to break the ties that bind. Now we get this. Playing a clip from Fox. Man, time just goes by, folks. Whoa, historical nugget before I play this clip. Bass player 2011 AFI. I'm a bit of a nerd like this, probably going to make you sick to your stomach. Check it. Today's historical nugget. Tapeworm eggs used to be sold as diet pills. I bet I could see them in the mail order catalog right next to the first version of Bayer aspirin that had heroin in it. Or the bottle of laudanum. Mail order, get it to your general store as soon as 2 weeks. I could see it. Diet pills. Let those little guys go. Let those little guys run free in your gut. Eating up everything. And you can still eat whatever you want. All right? It's like the old school version of the Richard Simmons workout. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry now. Eat a tapeworm. Oh, my Lord. Eat a tapeworm and eat whatever you want. That's what Richard says. Let's go. It's too much, dude. All right. Let's talk about how much money these tariffs could bring in. And it's not just the tariffs on the auto industry. But, of course, you had the Cato Institute, the American Enterprise Institute, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post. Everybody flipping their lid. Because the truth is, Wall Street doesn't really know what to do with this. They're perfectly good with the deregulation agenda and make the permanent tax cuts. By the way, you better do that. It's so easy to pressure Democrats into making those tax cuts permanent. It's so easy. Stop spending your political capital on like Randy Fine, dude. All right? Pass tax cuts, get the economy done, and nobody will be able to stand against you. And by the way, I saw several messages on Truth adding this guy. That's not the proper way to speak about the president. Adding the president and playing clips of the shows we've done, particularly the one on Thursday, I believe it was. And I'm telling you, when you're there doing the job, it's different. But if you work in the White House, if you work in the National Security Council, if you work at the Economic Advisor's Office or the White House Economic Council, if you work at any of these places, you better get out and get yourself some fresh air. Listen to what people are saying back home. So I love our good friend Sean Parnell, who we wish all the best. Always make sure to respond. Always make sure to ask for an anchor. Because the longer you're in that town, the more isolated you get. It's just true. That bubble is thick, baby. Thick. And they're not really appreciating the economic concern. It's not even concern. People know Trump can do it. That's how the country feels. They know he can do it. They just want him to pay more attention. I'm not saying that's fair. I'm saying that's perception. Perception's all that matters. This is a good start, however. Here we go. So this is my friend Peter over here making the case to media outlets recently that not only are these tariffs not going to hurt the American consumer, at the end of the day, these tariffs could help the American consumer because it's a new revenue source and we are broke. And if the debt bomb goes off, consumers are finished. They'll be chewing each other's arm off for a bottle of water. But there's some numbers to it. And if these numbers pan out, if these numbers pan out and inflation does not rise, by the way, don't give me the used car sales number. I don't want to freaking hear it. Used car sales, the CPI to deal with automobiles was one of the leading indicators, leading reasons that the CPI was out of control under the Biden administration, along with gas and housing. So don't feed me that crap if shelter and automobiles are still higher than we'd like them, while everything else is coming down. Gas, by the way, cost me not even $30 to fill my tank the other day. It was amazing. Amazing. And then he's not done yet. But if these numbers turn out to be what they are and inflation doesn't rise, it's going to be immensely popular. All right. It's 2:53. I got to play this, and then I'll try to get to some of the locals things, and that'll be it. We'll have time. But I'll speak more about it tomorrow. We will have special election coverage for locals, supporters, and YouTube members. All right, but let's go.
Estimates the Trump tariffs will bring in $600 billion in the first year to the Treasury General Fund. The president's extra 25% tariffs on autos alone expected to generate $100 billion on.
Okay. This is in the first year. Understand that when Washington, D.C. says, we just saved $600 billion, they're full of crap, and they mean over a 10-year period. It is almost always the case. So what they really would have meant is we saved $60 billion this year. Peter Navarro, my buddy, is saying no, Rich, first year. First year. Man, we should get Peter on, Laura. Let's get Peter on to talk about these tariffs. What the hell was I thinking? Peter, put a camera in your office. Let's go. Another OG. All these guys. Peter, Steve, they threw their butts. See, I deserve a cookie. They threw their butts in jail, and these guys inside loved them. They loved them. Minute he got out, Peter was like, Rich, I got to talk to you about criminal justice reform. We did some stuff in the first administration, but I've never experienced it. Let me pick your brain. Let's put together our brains. Let's get some ideas. He was serious. He is serious. Peter is the guy who writes policy proposals, like, for fun. He draws up like a prospectus of what a bill could be. It's weird. It's great, but it's weird. He does that. But he's saying no, first year, $600 billion with $100 billion. That 25% slap on auto tariffs. $100 billion coming from that. That's real money. That's real money. With a $4 trillion deficit, that's real money. That's like 20%, roughly, of the entire deficit. That's insane.
Top of the reciprocal tariffs. So those tariffs on just about all countries is meant to level the trade playing field. The extra 25% tariffs on autos and others meant to protect 7 industries the president has deemed critical. You see those industries there, autos on the list, along with semiconductors, labor, steel, aluminum, and the others. The
chips, semiconductors. Okay. He said labor. He meant lumber. Real genius. But what do all of these industries have in common? It wasn't that long ago, guys. All of these industries, we took a beating over and under and everywhere during COVID. Pharmaceuticals. He's not talking about making sure, big pharma is good. He's talking about making sure that if we have a mass pandemic and a lockdown again, we don't have to beg China to send us the ingredients for antibiotics. Semiconductors, huge. Obviously, defense applications. That's national security implications there, as do really pharmaceuticals, lumber. You can name anything here as, national security. He's talking about rare minerals and metals, copper, aluminum, steel. Man, Carnegie would have loved this guy. Not because he's a guild, but because he was a titan of industry. Of course, Carnegie did send a group of hired thugs to shoot at union members. There's a little bit of a contradiction there, But you know what I'm saying. These guys could not have become, and many of them were, the self-made titans of industry that they were in the current environment. Never. Never. U.S. Steel would not even be a thing. All right, let's finish reading this watching this because we're about out of time. It's almost over, isn't it? I think so. Yes, it is. No, I was over. That's huge. That's a lot of money, guys. That's a lot of money. All right, I knew there was going to be some local stuff, so let's go through it before we get off here, okay? Andrew, I love a good tear and mocking power. Mad, pissed, stinking losers. But you're becoming a bit of a mark, Rich. If I wanted to set you off or send you into a depressive tailspin like an evil consulting, you are starting to make yourself a target. I know. It is what I've been a target. When your own father gets a text message of a smear during an election with his son in it, you're the son, you're a target. Just looking out for you. After you lost it on Thursday, people are going to exploit that. Yeah, of course. Hi, any thoughts of some of the emerging Democratic leaders who are challenging the old guards? For example, in Illinois' 9th congressional district, 26-year-old Kat, I am not going to try to pronounce her last name, but I know who you're talking about, announced she is challenging a 26-year veteran, Jan Schakowsky, who is 80. Are they going to be able to inject new energy and take over the party mantle? Here's the thing, Wong. I don't think that these people are more moderate. I don't. I think that in many cases, some of the old guard in the Democratic Party, they themselves are more moderate. I'm not saying they're blue dogs, but they are more moderate. They're not as fanatical as the bases and some of the newer, actors in the Democratic Party. But they're pushovers. They're pushovers. They have no spine. They are whatever they need to be at the time. As Joe Biden himself said, I'll whore myself for a campaign contribution. Nancy Pelosi is no, total fanatic. She's whatever she needs to be to maintain her status. These people have no core. And I don't know, these younger people that come in, they may be, look at like Cory Bush, look at AOC, right? These were all younger people who are supposed to inject new life into the party. They're fanatics. So I don't know yet. We'll have to wait. I've created detailed README on the specifics of how I breach my WhatsApp directory messaging data. Oh, yeah, I remember this, Andrew. And how the encryption is similar to Signal. And I wanted to DM it to you on X. Can you add me as a follower? Sure. My username there is the same. You'll find me on the README. Helpful. Feel free to give it to anyone else you'd like. Yeah, they're doing an analysis of what happened with Signal. And it can only be two things. One, Mike added Jeffrey Goldberg to the thread, and he's just copping out because, as it turns out, he said, I don't even have Goldberg's number. He does have Goldberg's number. Now, I'm being told the guy's solid, was just, and that it's probably a more nefarious explanation, but we're going to find out soon because they're not going to just be able to say, oh, by the way, Elon's guys did their investigation and they found no wrongdoing. Moving on, it's going to have to be a thorough investigation. It's going to have to tell the truth. I'm not even saying if that means fire Mike Waltz. You never give your friend's scalp to the enemy in the hope that you can placate your enemy. You can't. Oh, right. I am doing Kirk. It's more of a pre-thing, I think, right? And then they'll add tomorrow. And then tomorrow I'll have Turley Talks, and then we'll do our special, which but watching Peter fly out of America's Gulag to come to the RNC and give a speech to break down holding his girlfriend was one of my favorite moments of the convention, and I broke down too. I'm confident we can pull off this reform this time. Yeah, they started it last time, Andrew. They started it. But it just didn't get anywhere. I mean, well, that's not true. They got the First Step Act, right? Which the DeSantis people, the DeSantites, started then calling the get out of jail free bill. What the hell did they call it? The First Step Act was the stupidest thing because the recidivism rate was much lower in that program than it is overall. So even if you can bring up one example. Of course you can. And no program is perfect. No bill is perfect. But that's good. That's actually, yeah, we'll see. Because he does have a narrow majority in the House, maybe not even soon. And it could be difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. To pass it. Whatever. We'll go through. Yeah, watching Peter fly. I think I got to it all, right? Am I getting some stuff I'm trying to read without saying the naughty stuff I promised I wouldn't say? I think we're just gonna have to call it a wrap there. Let me just check one second. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the difference. He's cool. They're not. I mean, this isn't really that hard. Republicans with their tiny little majority making things much harder for him to get done is not making it easy to make this identity change. I mean, that's really what I'm trying to get through here. Oh, real quick, before we go, I did want to just cite this. It's the Los Angeles Times, by the way. So, I mean, gosh, give me a second here. That's tariff article. That's tariff chart, which I did not need to show you. California-Mexico border once overwhelmed, now nearly empty. Bullet point 1 is the LA Times, not Breitbart. With so few migrants coming to the U.S., shelters that once served migrants have closed. The Border Patrol has been bolstered by 750 U.S. military troops dispatched to the San Diego area. And 3, in recent months, 6 miles of the border wall have been outfitted with concertina wire. Interesting. The Trump border wall is obviously supported by the overwhelming majority of the country. And it doesn't mean that the wire, okay, let me just put it this way. It doesn't mean the wire itself is what stopped. Obviously, this is a much more comprehensive plan the president put in place, which Biden knew was working, and then just decided that he was going to, get rid of everything because he wanted to be the anti-Trump, not the never Trump, the anti-Trump. Even if a policy worked, he would go ahead and do the exact opposite to the detriment and disaster of whatever he was touching. And it's kind of sad. A good idea is a good idea. So it's not like he didn't know what to do. He did. All right. 3:06. Got to prep for this interview here real soon. So don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them, share them far and wide. Sign up on Locals, which is right there. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. That is how you will get extra cool little election shows like we're going to be doing. Also on to the book club. All right. You can also become a YouTube member. If you are a member, you also are invited to book club. Every Sunday, I'll put in the community section, the community comments area on YouTube, the Zoom link where you can take the code, password, whatever. I also just block it. So it doesn't matter. No one knows what the Zoom info is because they would have to sign up. So it doesn't get overcrowded, but we're gaining numbers, which is good. And it's like the biggest book club ever, but would like to see even more. I really would. Nice contribute to the conversation. We're having a great time reading. We have already read so many books, so many good books, and there'll be plenty more in the future to discuss. Never too late to jump in. You don't need the book if you don't have it. It is not a cheap book, and that is because Vincent Pecora is often assigned to kids who are taking classes in various liberal arts courses. And if you've gotten a college degree, you know that they charge like 5 times what a book is worth, at least, when it goes on a reading list or a requirement list for a college, okay, which many of them share. So it skyrockets. All right, 3:08. I'm going to kick rocks. Don't forget the public polling project as well. The link is in the description below. All right, contribute, and share far and wide. So there are a lot fewer people who are always trying to shoulder the burden of the public polling project every month or 3 months, whenever we can fund it. Right? It usually tends to calm down during this time of year after an election, but at least has to be done quarterly. Otherwise, it's no kind of project at all. All right. So contribute and share. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Turley, Kirk. What am I missing here? Oh, right. Let's get Peter Navarro on the show to talk about this trade. I want to get in more about the trade. I'd like to do an entire episode about these tariffs and trade policy of the Trump administration. Kind of just see what he says to some of the estimates that we have seen out. Because when I was doing research, very clearly it was obvious where Peter was getting these estimates from. But there are others as well, other think tanks that are literally paid to write stuff that's anti-tariff. So it would be interesting to see how he would rebut that. Okay. You get only so much from the White House every day, and it'd be great to get a couple of minutes with him to figure that out. All right. 3:09. I'm out of here. Don't forget, don't do anything crazy. Don't do anything I would do. All right. And as always, deuces. I sound like my daughter when she was 5. Right, Daddy? Right. Oh my goodness. She used to drive me nuts with it, but super adorable. Have a great day, guys. Right. It was a good show, right, Daddy? It was a good show, right? Yes, Pumpkin. Yes, Pumpkin, you're right. Have a great day, guys.